Let's just make sure. All right. So we are live here, episode 223 with Beth Zogg, and you're coming in from Pearl City, which is Muscatine, Iowa. And Luke and I are here coming in from Grand Junction, Colorado. And we just want to give you the warmest welcome to Chiro Hustle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's really cool to connect with people that are creating great chiropractic professions and doing the work necessary in order to take us to the next level. And I just think that chiropractic is such an important topic to discuss. And the chiropractic story is one of those things that needs to be told more. And, on social media, it's one of those things that people, make posts or they like comment, connect with each other. But when people actually get to be seen and heard, that takes chiropractic to a whole different perspective, I believe.
Yeah, awesome. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
So as we always open up our episodes of Chiro Hustle, we just really like to tell your story. And if you would just share with our audience today, what influenced you to become a chiropractor and how did you get into this beautiful profession?
Sure. Well, I guess, kind of my claim to fame is that my grandpa was Clay Thompson of the Thompson technique. So I'm one of those kids that grew up with chiropractic. And I think a lot of people that have chiropractors in the family sort of take it for granted. And so I never really considered becoming a chiropractor as a young person. My first love was actually dance. I studied ballet and modern dance through junior high and high school and college. And it wasn't really until I went down to a DE meeting in the early 90s where Sid Williams had a birthday party for my grandpa that I first started thinking about going to chiropractic college. So that's DE, I guess, is the reason that I went to chiropractic school, really.
So maybe for those that are out there watching that don't know exactly this DE, what it is, would you mind telling everybody what DE means and why that was so important for the chiropractic profession?
Yeah, sure. So DE is Dynamic Essentials, and it was founded by Sid Williams, who was also the founder of Life College. And it's a really important part of our chiropractic history because after BJ Palmer passed away, there was kind of a void in the profession for our philosophical point. And so Sid started this DE movement, this dynamic essential, and he brought in speakers from all over, the chiropractic profession. And my grandpa was one of those. Dr. Sid had been a student of my grandpa at Palmer, so they had a long relationship. And it's still going on. They still have the DE meetings today, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I've never been to DE, but I hear it's the place that a lot of the chiropractic movement started. There was like Parker and there was DE, and other groups started to, grow outside of that. And they realized that getting people together and talking chiropractic philosophy was very important.
Yeah, and back in the day when I was in school, the DE meetings we always had the philosophy, but we also had all the top people in, technique and everything else too. So it was just a great program. And when I went for that birthday party, all these chiropractors were so enthusiastic about what they were doing, and they were all like hugging each other and loving each other. And I'm like, man, these are really awesome people, so it kind of made me fall in love with chiropractic in a different way.
Yeah, I think before people talk about the techniques, loving service is the first technique. And
Right.
That's kind of what you see within these chiropractic seminars and these weekends where chiropractors get together is the loving service of connection with each other. I think that's one of my favorite things about going to chiropractic seminars too. It's just the connection of like a different culture, and the culture is so rich when it comes to connection with each other.
Yeah, we do a very special thing. We're the only profession that works with that innate intelligence, locating and correcting subluxation. And it's really, to me, it's the greatest profession because we get to work with that God that's in our patients.
So can you tell us maybe what mantras do you live your life by, and maybe what are some of your favorite motivational quotes that keep you fired up?
Yeah. Well, so lately I've been really into these Jocko podcasts. Do you guys know him, that Jocko Willink? And I love that quote that he has, that, discipline is freedom. So I do love that. From a chiropractic standpoint, my grandpa used to say that the subluxation is the greatest enemy of mankind. And I really love that, because it really, keeps me focused on how important what I do every day really is. And I don't know if you guys know my grandpa's story, but his life was actually saved by chiropractic. He was dying of diabetes, and after he got adjusted for only 16 days, he was completely healed. So, my family really understands that chiropractic isn't about back pain. I mean, chiropractic really does save lives, by letting innate intelligence heal the body.
Jocko Willink is one of those, I believe, a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
And I think that some of their symbolism of being specific, of protection, is also the same for chiropractors, of being specific for letting people thrive. And, the Navy SEALs are taught to shoot for the third button. And the chiropractors are taught to locate, detect, and analyze vertebral subluxation and use x-rays to do so. So I think that that's something that's very symbiosis of what you're saying inspires you, but also what we know to be true about chiropractic is chiropractic specific, or it's nothing at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah.
So how do you think the world would change if everyone got adjusted regularly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if everyone was getting adjusted, of course, people would be more mentally and physically healthy. So, civilization would just be better. We would be better at our jobs. We would be, better in our families. It would be an amazing thing to see. I would love to see that.
I think that some of the things that we're being pressed with right now in our current situations with the pandemic that we're all living through right now, people would approach life a whole lot different.
Right.
They'd have a lot more resistance to their own responsibility. They would say, yeah, we can take care of ourselves. And I think that the responsibility of the individual would shift, and they'd feel a lot better just being alive and not worried about if people are going to have some type of a concern with their health. I think right now we're at that crossroads. It's really a pivotal time for us as a culture to say we can take care of ourselves. And self-responsibility is at an all-time. The measurement of self-responsibility is so important right now.
Yeah. And I mean, for those of us that really understand health, we don't live in fear of getting sick from a virus. I mean, we just live our life and we love our life. And I mean, obviously you have to take responsibility. We have to eat healthy food, get sleep, exercise, and all of that. But when we really understand that the body was, created to heal itself, we don't have to live in fear of every little, virus that comes along. And I think there's just so much fear right now. It's sad.
And there's even statements that I'll make. I'm like, well, I think everybody should get the damn virus. Like, I think it would probably do everybody, a little, I guess, metabolic justice. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's see what shakes out. Let's everybody get sick and see how we respond to this. And then we wouldn't be in fear. And then the political movement wouldn't be able to control the way that people think about their own health. Like, sure, I don't want everybody to get sick and die by any means, but I think everybody should go ahead and like, hey, let's just get this and see how we respond from it. And if, being the bearer of great or bad news, like, yeah, when your body becomes resistant to something, then it isn't something that people live in fear of. And then we go back to somewhat of a more natural lifestyle that we're used to.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, for myself, I believe there's a day and a time appointed that the good Lord's going to bring me home. So I don't think anything's going to take me before God's ready for me. And, I think part of it is maybe a little bit of a spiritual problem also.
Yeah, I believe that we're out of balance. We have a spirituality subluxation.
That's right.
And we're out of congruency with, the way that people look after each other and take care of each other. Like our family dynamics has shifted so much that, family responsibilities changed. And, I just think that there's a lot of things out there right now that people have to pay attention to. And one of themselves is self-responsibility. But the other part of this is knowing that when we're spiritually sound, it gives us. I was just down in Mexico, and I made a comment. I go, "You guys are so religious down here. I love it.
Yeah.
I feel so grounded to like religion."
Yeah.
And there was a friend of mine that traveled over from Spain, and he was speaking at this conference I was speaking at. He goes, "The thing you don't get, Jim, is that they're not grounded in religion. They're grounded in faith." And
Right.
the difference is
Yeah.
when you have faith, it's different than believing in a religion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you can see it, like how tight their families are and their sense of community and everything. We've lost that a lot, I think, in America. Yeah.
And the other part was he's like, you feel like, Jim, like you have to tell everybody like a story every time you get around them. And I go, yeah, it's kind of, I feel it's important to connect with people. He goes, but when you're down here, people see you as you are. You don't have to be seen as what people want to see you as. He goes, you just have to show up and be a part of this community, and that's enough.
Wow. That's awesome.
So when we think about what we're doing with chiropractic, we just have to keep sharing the story. And when we do enough of this, it is enough. And
Yeah.
if we bring on people with, real heart and passion for this profession, the people out there like David right now, he will see how interesting these messages are and how they do transcend the profession and how they do take what you have in your office in Muscatine, Iowa, can bring a truth to chiropractic that people didn't know. And your narrative is something that's important that might change a few lives.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So, with the way things have been going and the way things are now, where do you predict chiropractic will find itself in the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think that depends on all of us that are practicing today. Where do we want the profession to go? If we get our focus back on locating and correcting subluxation, then I think we have a great future. If we decide that we want to get away, from focusing on subluxation, then, I think we'll just kind of fade away. It's like my grandpa used to talk about, how chiropractors graduate as specialists. And, for some reason, we want to move from being a specialist in this one thing, that's locating and correcting subluxation, into being like a general practitioner and doing all these other things, where like the medical professionals, they graduate as just like a general practitioner and then they specialize. So for some reason, there's this tendency in the profession to be moving in the wrong direction. We already have something that is so special that nobody else is trained in. And we just need to get our focus back on that as being our primary thing.
Well, I agree with you. And, one of the things that I'll share with you again is from my experience this past weekend is chiropractic has the anchor, and the anchor is the triune, and the anchor is the science, the philosophy, and the art.
That's
And a
right.
lot of people out there that are watching this might not know that.
Mhm.
And if they do know that, maybe they haven't polished that and appreciated it. But I do think that that's the thing that makes it unique, and it makes it distinct, and it makes it non-replicable. And I think when people think about other healing arts or other health modalities, chiropractic is a standalone profession. And when you talk about, going to DE, and that's what it was about, like today in 2020, like the profession still is science, philosophy, and art. And it could go two directions. It could go, let's stick to the subluxation based chiropractic profession, or you guys can take it and run in a different direction. And basically, I would tell people it's like this: it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's like taking capital gain today and selling out the profession for what somebody else wants it to be, rather than what it was historically founded upon.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess, time will tell. But thanks to people like you, we can kind of talk about this because it is important. And I never dreamed in my lifetime that there would be such a thing as a subluxation denier. I mean, I never even heard of such a thing when I was in school. So, I mean, we definitely have a battle ahead of us to keep things on the right track.
Well, the other influence that I've discovered is if you get a degree in Mexico, you can't come and practice in the United States with that degree, even though it's a chiropractic degree.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing because we have a Thompson Foundation to promote the technique, and that's one thing that it's hard to kind of figure out like what degrees are from which countries and are they similar to the chiropractic degrees in the States, and it's all very confusing.
And that's just it. It's the chiropractic profession is run by the banks, because if it was true, they're graduating great chiropractors in Mexico, by the way. And
Yeah.
their technique is solid. Their philosophy is on point, and they are on fire for this profession. And by the way, they're graduating more chiropractors in Mexico right now than any other country in the world.
Oh, that's incredible.
So it's thriving down there. And the thing that makes it to the point that I'm saying is so valuable is when the person graduates from school, they almost have zero debt.
Wow. That's
So
awesome.
they can go out there and practice real chiropractic. They don't have to sell pillows and orthotics and vitamins and supplements and do electrostim and do all these things. They can go and just practice straight up chiropractic and make a good living.
Yeah, I think it's kind of with all education in the United States, as soon as student loans became available, then it shot the price like just sky high for all education. I mean, I've got two kids at the University of Iowa, and I think back, like when my dad went to Iowa, he could work in the summer and that would pay for his entire school year. And of course, a kid could never make enough money in the summer to pay for the whole school year. So, I mean, not just with chiropractic education, but all education, I think, in a way, the student loans have just made the cost astronomical.
Yeah, and if you wanted to take your degree from the United States and go practice in Mexico, you couldn't pay your student loans. So early on, Beth, I got into education. I was going to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that when people were in the education circuit, that if you left your school district, you lose your tenure. And I'm
Right.
like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't people have freedom to become teachers and go and travel and teach and have a great experience of life? And then I realized the same thing is kind of true for chiropractic. If you get a degree and license in the United States, you can't just go abroad and start practicing and make the same amount of like income, and your license and your degree might not even be credible. But I was just having this conversation. I'm like, look, if somebody gets a veterinarian degree or a law degree or some type of a, other, healing degree, medical doctor degree, they can take their degree from a foreign country and come over here and pass the boards, and they can practice.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that we need to do to rehab the education process and to make it more of an even, like chiropractors, like we always need an even playing field. Yeah, you have an even playing field, but now we need to sort out the mess with the education resource.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think some of our most successful and greatest chiropractors, went through a much shorter program, maybe 18 months or something like that. And I'm not against knowledge and education. I'm not against it, but at some point, I don't know, maybe we've gone a little bit too far, because I don't know how much of our chiropractic education is actually chiropractic. I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in school, but
Well, I think what
you have a better idea about that than I do because you talk to so many people.
Yeah, and I really believe that the education model is basically the same as for our undergrad and for high school and middle school. It's basically teaching people to become glorified test takers.
Right.
And yeah, anybody can retain enough knowledge to pass like with an exam, but when it comes to apply a business strategy, when it comes to apply a philosophical stance, when it comes to apply a marketing perspective, that's what the professional of chiropractic really needs.
Right.
And they can pass all the tests in the world, but if they can't pass the test of life and success, then we
Mhm.
just have another technician out there.
Yeah. Because, you know, I know that like Palmer in the early days, every subject was related back to chiropractic, you know? And so, like, in those days when they were the least educated, they had the most, you know, primitive equipment, that's when the profession grew the most because they had that good foundation of the philosophy, science, and art. And so I think, you know, maybe now we've just become almost too educated because we've lost some of that, like, you know, some of that connection between chiropractic and the subject matter in the schools.
I think that there's a lot that we can do, and that's why we need to have these conversations. Is sometimes people don't know the blind spots unless somebody points it out,
Yeah.
and somebody doesn't know where the concerns are unless they locate, detect, and analyze the subluxations of the profession.
Yeah.
So, so I think it all goes back to the root of the way somebody becomes patented. By the way, is it has to be unique, distinct, and non-obvious, and that's why chiropractic can't be bought or sold because it's unique, distinct, and non-obvious, and people can't replicate it. Like I said, and there's other people out there like physical therapists that are trying to, adjust, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have a philosophical resonance. It's not a natural healing art.
Yeah.
It's so medically minded that it's a manipulation and not an adjustment. And I
Yeah.
think when
It's
people think about like the truth of chiropractic, it's the root of chiropractic is the adjustment.
right. And what, you know, what you were talking about earlier, like the specificity of it, you know, not just mobilizing joints, but, you know, actually looking for where that irritation or interference in the nervous system is coming from. Years ago, Dr. Glenn and Stillwagon and his son Kevin Stillwagon had a program that they tried to present to the profession that was called Staking Our Claim on Vertebral Subluxation Complex. And their belief was that if we didn't stake our claim on it, then the medical men would take it. And now we do see that, you know, happening with the PTs and that kind of thing. So it's not too late. I mean, we still could stake our claim on it, but we have to get unified as a profession. You know, we can't have some people saying, well, there's even not even such a thing as a subluxation. You know, we're kind of working against ourselves.
So, could you elaborate on maybe who some of your heroes are? Who have you looked up to on your journey, chiropractic or otherwise?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, of course, you know, my grandpa was the first chiropractor that I ever knew, and the only chiropractor I was adjusted by until I went to chiropractic college. So he would be my number one hero. And you know, I knew a lot of his friends over the years, like Dr. Sid and Dee Dee Umber, Russ Earhart. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. He was a really, really awesome X-ray instructor. Dr. Glenn Stillwagon, I was really close with him. You know, we had many great instructors at Life College. Dr. Rossi that you had on last week was one of our great teachers. Harvey Fish, BJ Harmon. I mean, there's just so many great teachers that we had at Life that, you know, I just was really blessed to go to chiropractic college at a time when many of the greats were still living. I mean, we had Fred Barge come to the college all the time. We just had the top speakers and all the techniques come. And so I feel very blessed to be old enough, you know, really, that I got to see some of those great people in person.
So, if you had to pick one person from history that you could sit down and have lunch with for an hour, who would that one person be?
Yeah, probably everybody says this on your show, but I would love to just spend an hour with BJ Palmer. I mean, he was a really close friend of my grandpa. My grandpa said he was like a dad to him, and they spent a lot of time together. And the way that my grandpa talks about BJ, you know, that BJ was just obsessed with innate intelligence, and he would just sit for hours and think about it. And I guess I would just love to spend an hour with him, and also I would like to spend an hour with Dr. Galen Price, who was kind of like the philosophy teacher at Palmer that taught all of the greats their philosophy. So I'd like to spend time with him also.
Yeah, I think, as a historical moment, anybody would love to go and have a cup of tea or, an opportunity to sit with BJ. I
Yeah,
think that anybody that knows anything about the profession of chiropractic would like to have an influence from BJ, just
yeah,
because he was such a tremendous world influencer and he was ahead of his time. And we're lucky to have the foundation that he established. And I think that, you're so spot on when you talk about these other amazing influencers, maybe some that no one's heard of, and maybe some that have like that resonate with your heart, and some people that were out there and they were the ones that were asked to be an influencer before we even knew what an influencer was. They were just educators.
yeah,
And I think that when you make that connection with who's going to be watching this is a newer group of like DCs or an older group of DCs, they're going to realize that, wow, I might want to go look and see who some of these people are that I don't know. And I think that that's really why this show really matters, is because we get a chance to cultivate the message from you to not only the people that are from your uh, group that you graduated with in that era, but now we get to talk to the up and coming students, and they're like, "Well, who is this Galen Price? Who is this Dr. Fish? Who is this?" These names, these notables, and if people haven't heard of your grandfather, they can go look up Clay Thompson and see that's your lineage, and I think that's something really beautiful to share with people.
yeah. Like coming from the dance background and thinking about art, art is passed down by teachers. A teacher is very important, and so we preserve that art by passing it on from generation to generation. And chiropractic is an art as well, and so it's a responsibility we have to make sure that we pass on our knowledge to that next generation so that it continues long after we're gone.
I also think that that's so true about, you're talking about the speakers that come that are sought after. And, a lot of the groups, they kind of have to shy away from supporting marketing. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to teach more of. And if it's not something that teaches one of those core three, science, philosophy, art, then even the state associations can't have people come in and influence the chiropractic profession because it doesn't get CE credits. But I think that the profession needs to look past a little bit about what is a CE credit and a continuing education credit as a part of also what is practical knowledge that actually makes a profession become more valuable by having better resources of information. And I think that's something we need to have a serious conversation about moving forward too. Is yeah, I mean, it is important to have continuing education on those three topics, but we also need to have people that can teach business, finance, marketing, things like those topics that are really going to pull the profession forward financially and with more success.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, isn't it the BJ Palmer saying? I think this is right. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. Isn't that one of BJ's
It
sayings?
is. It is. I think it was one of his epigrams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those things are so true when it comes to like the fundamentals of building a business.
Yeah.
And we have to like knock on the door of these state associations and say, you know what? I think chiropractors need to learn how to do podcasts. You know what? I think chiropractors all should learn how to do live streams. And
Yeah.
that is what's going to take the profession to the next year and the next 5 years, is how much media can we create with the chiropractic message around it, that people can actually share and build more social presence. And social media is a whole different language, and we have to start teaching that to the chiropractors.
Yeah, because I'm older, and I honestly, if I didn't have to have a computer, I would never get on a computer. I mean, I just didn't grow up with it. I don't like them, you know. So like when I got out of chiropractic college, the big thing for advertising was the yellow pages. Nobody even, I mean, like my kids have never even seen a yellow pages. So I mean, like older people like me are the ones that really need help too, because this is just so foreign to us, and we just tend to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And because really, like, all I have is I have a website, which I really don't do a lot with, and then I have a Facebook page, but I don't really do a lot with it. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be appropriate to have that for like the students and the new docs, but also for all of us old farts that really don't know how to do anything online also.
Well, that's just it. As my talk when I was in Mexico was called Selling Your Voice. And it was about how to upstart yourself as a brand and how to build influence around the 7 miles of your practice with creating a podcast. And I really think that the more that people know how to do it, and like Dr. Carlos Celis, he was down there with me, and he says the better they do it, the better represented we all are.
That's
And
true.
I think that having the tools and the resources to have the commitment to say, I'm just going to go do this. That's going to give the profession so much more leverage as becoming more credible, because now when you share this interview with your practice and your practice members, they're going to know you differently.
Right.
You're going to show up differently for them because they get to see a part of you that they don't see from the clinical perspective side of you and as the adjuster side of you.
Yeah, that's true.
And when they share this with their community, and it starts to get that snowball effect of being a social media now language piece, people are going to, be able to take in this information, and they're going to know who you are fundamentally, from why you became a chiropractor, where you see the profession going, why you believe this profession is so important for humanity. And they're going to say, well, what does it mean to locate, detect, and correct vertebral subluxations? And then they're
Right.
going to probably Google that, and they're going to realize that chiropractic was based on philosophy.
Right.
So all of these things are so valuable that we're talking about today, because like BJ would say, you never know how far reaching something you say, do, or, how much impact that will have on millions of lives tomorrow. And
Yep.
I think that when we know what this is possible, the possibility of what this media position is, all chiropractors should be doing exactly what we're doing today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think back like maybe 10 years ago, you get kind of disconnected. You don't get to see your chiropractic friends that often. You're just doing your thing. And I mean, for me, like, the social media, like groups that are chiropractic groups, it really helps you get connected with other chiropractors. And we need that, we need that support from each other. And so these platforms are great for that also.
So, on the topic of connecting and marketing, what are some of your favorite marketing techniques, and what are your least favorite that you just hate?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in Muscatine, which, Jim, that's a small town. So most of my marketing is really just word of mouth, and that works pretty well for me since I'm in my hometown, and I pretty much know most of the people here. So I don't do a ton of marketing. I do, a little bit of email marketing each week, just letting my patients know the hours and available times and that kind of thing. But this is an area that I could definitely improve upon.
Yeah, I think that everybody, if they're in practice, they need to kind of do the things to nurture their community a lot more as of today, just because people need more connection and they need more access from a digital communication standpoint. And that's where everybody's spending their time. They're not spending their time at the dinner table. They're not studying with their kids, even though
Yeah.
some people are like, yeah, I'm homeschooling. Yeah, probably not. People are more like social on social than ever before, and they're spending more of their time, whatever they're doing, they're watching this thing, they're paying attention to this thing.
Right.
And that's where we need to be with the chiropractic narrative and the chiropractic message, because that's where people are paying attention to. So energy what do they say? Energy flows where attention goes.
Right.
And wherever people are paying attention to, that's where we need our energy to flow to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So I love the idea that you share, though, that you do the email marketing. How long have you been doing that?
Oh gosh, I've done that for a long time. Yeah, it kind of just helps people know when I have openings. I mean, that's basically what I send out. Like Sunday nights, I send out a little email and say, hey, I have these times available, Monday, Tuesday, whatever day, and then people can just. I do a lot of appointments just through text messaging and email requests, and so people really like that, and they don't have to call. They can just like send a message or answer the email. And so it works out really well for me for scheduling people too.
So what was the one thing in marketing that you did over your career that did not work?
Well, a lot of it didn't work. I mean, the Yellow Pages was a waste of money. That was really a waste of money. I've done radio, I've done TV commercials, I've done like all kind of print stuff. And I mean, sometimes I'll do that stuff just because I just, if somebody like the symphony wants me to put an ad in their, flyer or their program, I'll still do that kind of stuff just to support those things. But yeah, I mean, I don't really think that I got hardly any patients from any of that stuff. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been mostly word of mouth, I would say.
Yeah, I think that a lot of chiropractors grow their business off success of results.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, because like there's so many different techniques. Sometimes people prefer the Thompson technique because it's a little more gentle. So I get referrals because of that. Not everybody likes that though. Some people want like a really, big lumbar roll or something. And so then they go to other people in town. So, we have good chiropractors in my town, and I have friends that practice very different from me. And, we refer patients back and forth to each other. So we kind of try to help out the patient, send them to, the best person for whatever they have going on.
So this takes us full circle. So chiropractic is artistry.
Mm-hmm.
And every chiropractor that you go to is going to adjust just a little bit different because that's their technique of art.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what makes this profession so beautiful, is because it's about the relationship and the bond that you have with the practitioner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to me, I'd rather refer a patient to another chiropractor than to a medical doctor. So, I think that's kind of neat that the chiropractors in our area are good about that. If we're not getting the results that we want for the patient, or the patient's unhappy, I'll find another chiropractor for them to go to.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So what would be one piece of advice that you would give to a struggling student?
Well, I mean, for me, the best part of chiropractic college are all the clubs, all the clubs and all the seminars. If your college has clubs, go to every club you can go to. Try to, go to technique clubs, philosophy clubs, whatever club that you can connect and, find a group of people that you can relate to. I think that you should go to every seminar you can as a student, because they're usually a lot cheaper, and you can, be introduced to many different techniques. It's important to know more than one technique when you get out of school. My grandpa would always say, what's in your toolbox? You need to have more than one tool in your toolbox. You can't only do Thompson technique. You need to know several techniques really well, so that no matter what that patient comes in with, you'll be able to help them.
How do you feel about students picking a school based on region or geographic location?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it costs a lot of money no matter where you go. So you might as well go to the best school, whatever that is for you. I mean, obviously, I'm a subluxation person, so I think everyone should go to a chiropractic college that really emphasizes, innate intelligence and locating and correcting subluxation. And I think that should be primary. I mean, it's only a few years of your life, and move to wherever that school is and make the most of it.
Yeah, I think that, picking a school is like picking a city to live and work in. It's like what resonates with you the most.
Yeah.
And I think that, we have to think about the course of life that we really want and the long-term effect of having the chiropractic degree. Like I said, most of the schools just create people to be glorified test takers. So at the end of it, you want to have a good collegiate experience with good instructors and a good foundation for the future of your career. So I really think that that question's important to ask all people that have been in the profession for some time, because you're going to have a different take on it than the next interview that we do. And I just think that it's really important for people to have, you know, learn from people that have greatness and that have longevity of their careers, because those are the people that I want to talk to. Those are the people that I want my information from. And I think that that's something that makes what we do very unique, is we give so many different perspectives to people to say, wow, that was really important. And that helped me with my decision making for my career.
Yeah. I mean, I think, if I were going to go to chiropractic college today, I would want to visit a lot of the colleges and like in person and, try to understand what the college was all about. So, yeah.
Well, I was just reading through your bio again here, and it says something about thermography. Do you want to talk about a little bit about your connection with thermography?
Yeah. So, my grandpa actually was the head of research for a long time, and he ran the instrumentation department at Palmer. So, you know, I grew up understanding the importance of an objective measure because, like in Thompson technique, we use a leg length check, but that's somewhat subjective. We could have 5 doctors not see the exact same thing in the leg length check. So our heat reading scans are very important, and they're really easy to do, and they give us a window of sorts into the function of the nervous system. So when my grandpa passed away, I was really mentored by Dr. Glenn Stillwagon, who was, one of the best people for instrumentation. And I learned a lot from him. And I actually taught thermography at Life College for a time. So I think I'm kind of like one of the few nerdy people that's really into that. And I would love to see, the profession embrace that again, where, we actually have an objective measure pre and post to determine if what we're doing is actually helping the patient. Otherwise, if you're just going by the patient's symptoms, then you're more or less just practicing medicine. So we need to get focused on the pre and post scans. Is the nervous system actually functioning better? And then it's a great way to educate the patient too on innate intelligence and get them away from that whole symptom focused care, but really onto, what is the state of their health and how important it is for them to continue care.
Well, I really like the thermography with the pre and post scans as well. And one of our good buddies, David Fletcher, has CLA. And I know that what he's doing is very important for a lot of these up and coming chiros are using that technology again.
Yeah.
And they're finding that objectivity is very important. And that what I've come to also understand is that adaptability after the adjustment is really what we want. We want a homostatic shift. We want people to go into more of a, there's the concept of, God, it's escaping me at the moment. That's very rare for me. But when we talk about um, the nervous system, the parasympathetics, chill down when
Mhm.
people get that adaptability from the adjustment. And
Yeah.
that's really what I think is really cool about the pre and post check with the thermography, is you can see that shift of the parasympathetics based on the thermography scans. And I think that that's why it's so viable, because seeing is believing, but
Right.
also when you actually have an objective measurement tool to show people that, hey, we're actually making an impact on your nervous system, that's what all chiropractors will beat the big drum about and say, hey, we help the nervous system, we help the immune system, we help with innate intelligence. Well, let me see that. And I
Right.
think that thermography is a great way of showing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when a new patient comes in, we talk about when they have that subluxation, they may have pain and they may have muscle spasm, but you won't always have that with a subluxation. But when you have a subluxation, you always have this hyperactivity of the sympathetic nervous system, and that is reflected in skin temperature. And so that's where we can show them, like, this is the manifestation of your subluxation. You can show them the before and after, and it keeps us honest as the chiropractor too, because like in the old days, we used to talk about majors and minors and adaptations and compensations. And so if you're just kind of like racking and cracking and not really being specific, you might actually be messing up that compensation that innate put there to deal with the primary subluxation. And so it's really important to have some kind of objective measure to make sure that, yeah, that was the right thing at the right time for that patient. And then oftentimes, you're going to leave the patient alone. You may actually do less, and you just let innate then do its thing.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about correcting the subluxation and checking with thermography again, people are going to be blown away when they see some of these post scans and they see less inflammation on the readings, because that's really what the subluxation is. It's inflammation in the spinal joint causing pressure on the nerve, and basically some type of a downstream effect that's happening on the nerve, which is going to do something to the organ, which is going to do something to the biomechanics inside of the body. And I think that when people really think about why it's important to use the tools and the resources that are available, that's why. And we talked about BJ Palmer earlier. Like, if that guy was around, he would have everybody doing thermography scans. Like, the whole world would probably shift to making sure that everybody gets x-rayed and everybody gets scanned. And then they would pair those two together, and they would do the report of findings saying, okay, this is where your inflammation markers are, and this is where your have osteophytes, and this is where you have degeneration. So we really need to pay attention to this, because that's where the inflammation set in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we know, like, there's so many models of subluxation, but we know when you have that vertebral subluxation and it causes that irritation in the sympathetic nervous system. Well, when the sympathetic nervous system gets in that fight or flight mode, then you're going to have decreased blood flow. I mean, it may be to the skin, but it may be to an organ system. And so you can start to understand how that subluxation is causing lack of blood flow to an organ, dis-ease of that organ, and eventually death of that tissue. So it becomes a very big deal. I mean, subluxations kill people.
Mm-hmm. And that's the part where we need to do a lot more education so people understand that. Because
Right.
I think we can say that and it sounds like a good bumper, like sticker, but
Yeah.
when it comes to like really understanding why do subluxations kill people, that's the part we need to get better at communicating to the public.
Yeah. And I mean, like I use instrumentation quite a bit, and sometimes I do everything exactly, right in my mind, and I do another scan and the scan got worse. And then I have to take responsibility for that and be like, okay, what did I miss? I have to go back. I have to recheck the patient, readjust the patient, and make sure that I got it right, because if we believe that an adjustment can help people heal, we also have to take responsibility that a force in the wrong place at the wrong time can actually create more problems for the patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this conversation that we're having with you today. I appreciate you being so open to share some of your philosophy and the why behind the profession that you love.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, when you have downtime to yourself, what kind of things do you like to read and listen to, and what are some of your hobbies?
Yeah, well, I try to, and every morning when I get up, I try to listen to a podcast. It's actually the pastor I had when I lived in Atlanta so many years ago, Charles Stanley. I love him. I feel like that kind of gets my head and heart in the right place for the day. I I love those Jocko podcasts. That's my like. So that's what we've been up to since May.
And what are some of your hobbies?
Oh, did you guys cut out for a sec?
We're starting to lose you a bit.
Yeah, there's a little disconnect with your feed.
Yeah.
Well, we might want to consider wrapping up this episode for the day. Beth, if you can hear us, thank you very much for being our guest today. This was a cool episode, 223 on Chiro Hustle.
And Dr. Beth, I just want to thank you so much for being our guest today. If you can shoot us over in Messenger some resources where people can reach out to you, website, or any social medias that people should consider following you on or connecting with you on, we'd really appreciate that. So we're going to close out today and just thank you all for being on with us today for Chiro Hustle episode 223. Dr. Beth, you are such a kindred spirit to me, being from Iowa. And we love and appreciate you. And we just want all of you to have a wonderful day and a great night.
Keep hustling.
See you guys soon.